Difference between contingent contract and absolute contract. A contingent contract is a contract in which the performance depends on the happening or non-happening of a future uncertain event, whereas an absolute contract is a contract in which the performance is not dependent on any condition or event. In a contingent contract, the obligation arises only when the specified event occurs or does not occur, while in an absolute contract, the obligation arises immediately after the contract is formed. A contingent contract involves uncertainty, as the event may or may not happen, whereas an absolute contract involves certainty of performance. Contingent contracts are governed by sections 32 to 36 of the Indian Contract Act, 1872, while absolute contracts are governed by the general provisions of the Act. Insurance contracts are common examples of contingent contracts, whereas contracts for sale of goods or services without conditions are examples of absolute contracts. Thus, the main difference lies in conditional performance versus unconditional performance. Difference between contingent contract and absolute contract. Nature of performance. In a contingent contract, performance depends on the happening or non-happening of a future uncertain event. In an absolute contract, performance does not depend on any event and must be carried out without any condition. Time of enforcement. A contingent contract becomes enforceable only when the specified event occurs or does not occur. An absolute contract becomes enforceable immediately after it is formed. Element of uncertainty. A contingent contract involves uncertainty because the event may or may not happen. An absolute contract involves certainty, as performance is sure to take place. Conditional or unconditional obligation. In a contingent contract, the obligation is conditional upon the occurrence of an event. In an absolute contract, the obligation is unconditional. Legal provisions. Contingent contracts are specifically governed by sections 32 to 36 of the Indian Contract Act, 1872. Absolute contracts are governed by the general provisions of the Act. Examples. Insurance contracts are examples of contingent contracts, as payment depends on uncertain events. Contracts for sale or service without conditions are examples of absolute contracts. Conclusion. A contingent contract is a conditional contract whose performance depends on a future uncertain event. The Indian Contract Act clearly lays down rules to decide when such contracts are enforceable or void. Understanding contingent contracts is very important for practical legal knowledge.